What's up guys, and welcome to another YouTube video. In today's video, I'm going to be answering all of your questions in a special Superkarting Q&A, and I'm hoping to do these every other week to answer all of your questions in and around superkarting. Please do hit that like and subscribe. I know it sounds cliche, but it really does help me out, and I hope that you can take some really useful information from this Q&A. So please do comment below with other questions that you might have. Okay, so let's get straight into it then. So the first question that's come in is, how fast can your superkart go? This question is heavily dependent on which class of superkart you're racing. So for example, we have the 125 superkart, we've got the 250cc, the 450cc, which is a 4-stroke, and then we've got the twin cylinder 250cc Division 1 superkart, which I will be racing this year. To answer the question, the speed of the superkart depends on which class you're racing, and for me personally, I'm going to be racing the Division 1 superkart, which means I could be hitting speeds of up to 150 or 160 miles per hour. Obviously, the length of the straight at the circuit is going to depend on what speeds we are hitting, but ultimately, the speeds are absolutely phenomenal, and one of the key things that separates superkarts to other forms of motorsport out there. It really is pretty insane. So just to give you guys a reference, the 125cc superkart will do about 120 miles per hour. The 250cc will do about 130 to 140 miles per hour, and that's very much similar with the 450cc as well. And then, like I say, the twin cylinder is the sort of the creme de la creme. That will do the fastest speed, but at the same time is the more expensive option as well. If someone was just looking to get into superkarting, the 125 is a great entry class and probably the most affordable form of superkarting, and the speeds that you can go are still absolutely ludicrous. So with all that said, I hope that answers the question of how fast superkarts can go. Okay, so the next question, number 2, is what sort of lap times are superkarts doing? Now, superkarts are phenomenally quick, not just because of their straight line speed, but because of the cornering speed that they can take them. Superkarts will often do around 2 seconds a lap quicker than British superbikes. And just to give you an example, I've had a little look online at the Porsche 911 Turbo superkart lap record at Alton Park. Alton Park is a UK circuit, and it's a famous one for British touring cars, Brit car, and other forms of motorsport. So the twin cylinder Division 1 superkart set a lap time of 1 minute 34, and a Porsche 911 Turbo, a supercar, set a lap time of around 1 minute 57. So I was gobsmacked. I can't believe at how quick superkarts are. And even when I'm going round, sometimes I'm like, these are just crazy. But I would urge anyone to have a go, because it'll be an experience that you'll probably never forget. Okay, so question number 3 is, why get a supercar over a normal shifter kart? Now, a shifter kart is typically an American term and used for short circuit go-karting, but with gears. In the UK, we call that gearbox karting. And typically, why I choose a supercar over a shifter kart, it's the speeds, the mechanical grip, the aero grip, the circuits we race on. For example, in March, coming up in a couple of months, we have the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, which is where the F1 lads race. For me, that's a bucket list thing. And if I was racing a short circuit gearbox kart or a shifter kart, I would be missing out on those sort of experiences. Don't get me wrong, a lot of people out there would prefer shorter circuit go-karting. That's absolutely fine. But for me personally, I love the thrill and the experience of these longer circuits, the full Grand Prix racetracks that I can, absolutely rip these superkarts around and give it the full beans. Question number 4, what made me get into superkarting? So, a bit of a funny story. When I was a child, I would always go on a camping holiday in Cornwall. Now, if you're from America or anywhere else in the world, Cornwall is a lovely little beach coastal destination on the UK. Now, our camping holidays went on for about 11 years, and to make them a little bit more fun, every year I would save up and pay to go go-karting at the local circuit in Cornwall. Now, at the time, I was only about 14 years old, and as you can imagine, they split the groups up between children and adults. As a 14-year-old, I couldn't get into the adult group, so I ended up sneaking in and actually winning against the adults in the pro karts, which said they did about 70 miles per hour. I don't think they did, probably a little bit less. But I guess the point is, I really enjoyed it. I ended up beating a lot of the adults after sneaking in to do the adult karts. And me and Dad came away and we said, how can we sort of take this further? What can we do? So we had a look online and we found a local circuit that did a ride and drive of superkarts, and it was only about an hour away. So we drove there, we gave the superkarts a go, and I'm not going to lie, at first, I was a little bit overwhelmed. I'd never raced any form of motorsport vehicle before. Didn't have a driver's license, so I'd never driven a car before. So getting into something where I was 2 inches off the ground, doing about 120 miles per hour on a 3-mile circuit, I was a little bit blown away, and I think there was quite a few swear words coming out of my mouth as I was going round, because my brain couldn't work quick enough to understand what I needed to do. There's a massive difference from going from an arrive and drive 30 mile per hour go-kart to a full-scale, supercar that will go around a 3-mile circuit at 120 miles per hour. But what a great experience for me to try it before I bought it. So me and Dad ended up putting some money together, and we went to get my second-hand supercar, which was a 125cc supercar. Put the cart on top of the homemade trailer and we tie strapped it down, and we turn up at the circuit and camp on the tarmac, because I was working at a local restaurant 70 to 90 hours a week to fund my racing. So it's been a funny old journey, and you'd see these £1 million motorhomes pull up as well, so it was always quite funny for me that I'd camp and then sometimes actually beat these guys as well. So it was a great sort of feeling for me, but I always knew I was held back a little bit by the budget that I could provide, but also the kit was always second hand as well, and it does make a difference. But I wouldn't let that hold you back, because the thrill and experience of getting into it and just buying your first kart, the second-hand kart, and getting out there and even achieving a top 10, that was always kind of like, if I can just get in the top 10 with my budget and the old kit that I have, that to me was like a win. So I was about 17 when I got into superkarts, so I don't think you can race on these longer circuits unless you're over 17, so that's something that you're going to have to take into account. Okay, so the next question, number 5, is am I looking forward to going airborne over the mountain at Cadwell Park? Now, for anyone that doesn't know what Cadwell Park is, it's a huge 3-mile race circuit. It's on the east coast, and it's about a 3-hour drive for me. But there's a famous mountain sort of hill on the circuit, and basically you go up the hill and then it flattens. So if you can get some really good speed going up there, super bikes and certainly superkarts have been known to sort of go airborne. Now, I'll post a picture here of Paul, who races superkarts in the 250cc class, and he's got a really cool photo of basically taking off at the top of the mountain. I think that day he certainly got his pilot license, because he was really looking up at the sky, and I can't imagine holding on. Well, I certainly would be holding on for dear life if that happened to me. I think I have got a photo actually where all 4 wheels have come off the ground. But yeah, nothing like Paul. I think he's too quick for his own good, to be honest. So to go back to your question, I'm really looking forward to racing the Division 1 supercar at Cadwell, and especially taking off over the mountain. I think you have to be careful there. I think when you take off, you've actually got to let off the throttle a little bit, so you're not over revving the engine. But again, I'm sure if you speak to a lot of the lads, they'll just say, just keep it pinned, and if in doubt, flat out. Okay, so question number 6. In regards to superkarting, what do you do in terms of aero grip, and what tyres do we use? So for aero grip, I'd say when we are setting up the kart at a new circuit, Aero Grip is probably one of the biggest adjustments that we will make in terms of the chassis and the setup of the kart. Slight changes on the rear wing can really make big differences on your straight line speed, and at the same time the front nose cone is a real tricky one to get right, because if you're going into a corner and you're understeering, what you might do is lower the front nose, so you actually get more aerodynamic downforce pushing the kart in at the front, so you get more turning and more bite into the corners. At the same time, if you're understeering, you want to lift the nose so you get more air under the kart, and it actually takes off a bit of front weight onto the front wheels, so you're actually reducing that bite onto the turning. So Aero Grip, to answer the question, is absolutely fundamentally important when setting up a superkart. Even with the smaller classes which don't have a rear wing, that nose cone adjustment is going to be absolutely vital for those quicker corners at these bigger circuits as well. Okay, so the final question is, how does a superkart vary to a normal go-kart, and actually do you ever feel like there's too much horsepower and that can affect the handling? So to answer your question, do you know what? Sometimes coming out of the smaller corners, it can get quite choppy on the throttle because there's so much power and they just want to go like a rocket. You really have to tweak your driving style and almost be a little bit of a perfectionist to get the throttle, the steering right. There's no ABS braking systems, there's no anti-lock brakes, there's no steering assist that you find in other forms of motorsport. This is the purest form of four wheels steering wheel that you're ever going to get. It's very easy to lock up the brakes. You've got to be so careful, especially at those speeds as well. So it doesn't really get purer than this. But to answer the question, is the horsepower too much to affect the handling? Not really, because you adjust your driving style and you make the most of what you have. And what makes it so different to a standard kart? Well, really, everything. To answer that one, it's the tyres, it's the mechanical grip, it's the aero grip, it's the speeds of up to 150 to 160 miles per hour. You're sat lower, your seat position, you're almost laying down, you're almost completely lay flat. So your helmet visor is just above the aero bubble, so you can see. So many things make superkarting different to standard go-karts, and you're explaining superkarting to someone and actually they associate or hear the word kart and they think that it's something to do with go-karts, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Superkarts are completely different and they actually put to shame a lot of supercars. It's a shame that people associate them with go-karts, but I think when they see them and they experience the power and the speed of these things, they soon realise that these are a completely different monster. We've just had another question come in and it was about the gear selector, and I have mine on the left, and the question was around whether you can put that on different sides and change that and if there's much adjustment. So to answer the question, you can put your gear selector on any side you want, and you can change it so that you can go forward to go up the gears or you can go back to go up the gears. It really is driver preference. Now for me, in my little brain, if we're going forwards, I want to be going up the gears, and then if we're braking and stopping, then I'm coming down the gears. It just makes sense in my mind. I know in America for the shifter karts, we see videos all the time where they are pulling back to go up the gears, and then sometimes with the braking force, when you naturally go forward, they can come down the box like that as well. I can see why people do it, and sometimes people think it's a bit quicker that way, but for me and my personal preference, I like to have it on the left hand side because I'm right-handed, so I can control the steering wheel with my right hand, and then I go up the box and down the box. When you're changing gears, you only need to blip off the throttle a little bit and then change gear and back on the throttle. There's no need for hand clutch or anything like that. We do have a hand clutch, but that's normally for race starts and also pulling away after you've been pushed and you pull back into first gear. Please do hit that like and subscribe. Hope that you can take some really useful information from this Q&A. So please do comment below with other questions that you might have.